Geno Smith, Desmond Ritter, James Cook, KJ Osborne, John Bates, DeSean Watson, Joshua Kelly, Sky Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Troutman, and the Los Angeles Chargers. Let's go. What up, everybody? It's your boy DFSUpNorth here with another 10 under 10. My 10 favorite GPP options, 5 from Draftkings and 5 from Fanduel, that are all going to be under 10% owned this week. And I apologize. I just wanted to get those guys out of the way right away. I put the list at the beginning because some commentator last week said there's too much fluff at the beginning. It took 10 minutes to get to pick. So, buddy, I don't know who you are, but now you got it, right? Now you're in. You're in. You know what's up. So we will get to the actual picks here in a second. But first, I just want to talk a little bit about last week. And can we talk about the smash that we had in this article last week? I mentioned, when we filmed this last week is that, in week one, somebody said, I hated all these picks. And that really, for me, is a good sign because that means that we are getting a little bit funky on the slate. And that allows us to have guys that are going to be close to the Millie Maker winner. So last week on DraftKings, we averaged 4.62x salary. FanDuel, not as good, but Goff, 4x value. Baker Mayfield, 5.2x. Zach Moss, 4.4x. Nico Collins, 6.4x. And Sam Laporta, 3.1x on FanDuel. We did have Jordan Love, who was fantastic. But then Zay Jones was injured. Irv Smith was a dud. DK Metcalf was hurt, might be out again this week. And I somehow got sucked into Khalil Herbert last week. So, big pat on the back to myself for doing pretty good on DraftKings last week. But FanDuel, we got you this week, all right? But if you guys have never followed this show before, basically my motto when it comes to DFS is first or last. I ain't here to min cash, similar to the great philosopher Ricky Bobby. And, that is how I attack these slates, as I am looking for some of the low-owned guys that are going to go off that maybe everybody else is overlooking and are going to help me vault to the top of the leaderboard. And we did that on DraftKings last week. Now we got to get FanDuel. We got to get both of them this week. And I feel pretty good about my picks this week. So without further ado, actually, wait, we're going to get with further ado. This is free, right? This is a free YouTube video. This is a free article that you can find the link to on DraftKings or on DFS Army. But if you want access to all of the tools that we use that help, my boy Advantage win 100K last night again on the Showdown. If you want access to our core plays, our cheat sheets, things like that, you got to become a DFS Army VIP, and you can do so by using the code UpNorth. That gets you 10% off VIP membership. If you don't want to become a VIP, that's fine. That is your choice. We also have free months that you can get, and you can find that on the website too. I will link that in the description here too. But if you don't want to become a VIP, what I would ask is that you like and subscribe to this channel, because that keeps content like this coming at you for free. So without further ado, let's get into this week. It is a really sort of, I think it's a tricky week. All right. We got some weather. There's a tropical cyclone bearing down on the East Coast. And there's one game that really stands out this week that everybody is going to, two games. The first game is going to be Kirk Cousins and Justin Herbert. They're going to be two of the highest owned quarterbacks, and that game stack is going to be one of the highest owned on the slate. But there are some ways to get different at it. The reason that's going to be high owned is, right, neither of these defenses are very good. They're both throwing the ball a ton, and we have a 54-point game total. So there's ways to get different by still getting action or pieces to that game. We're going to talk about them here in a second. And then the other game is going to be Pat Mahomes against the Bears, who have just been absolutely atrocious all year. As I said many times, you don't need me to tell you that Herbert and Kirk Cousins and Pat Mahomes are outstanding plays. But what we want to look for is a quarterback that we can jump on that might be cheap, right? A cheap stack that can let us get access to some of those guys, like a Travis Kelce in a smash spot, right? Or you want to get all the way up and pay for Justin Jefferson, right? Which I think is a fantastic play this week. So for me, the top guy, or one of the top guys on DraftKings, is going to be Desmond Ritter. I really like the way Ritter looked last week. He's starting to figure it out. He was able to take off 10 times, added 39 yards in the ground. He gets to go against the Lions, who are atrocious, giving up 350 pass yards last week to the Seahawks. It's a 46.5 point total, which is actually pretty good on this slate. So I really like Ritter, and the pairing with Ritter is like, I think you can run him naked, but for me, I actually kind of like a Ritter and Bijan Robinson pair. Everybody else that's going to play Ritter, which isn't that many people to begin with, might go to Drake London. It makes sense. London's super cheap on both sites this week. I do like it, but I kind of like the idea of going Ritter and Bijan Robinson. You're going to be very unique. You can just play chalk the rest of your lineup. And you're essentially going to be locked into all of the touchdowns unless Tyler Allgeier sneaks in there. But really high on Bijan Robinson. He's an elite pass catcher. The guy's a 3 touchdowns, 35 DraftKings point game waiting to happen every single week. If you're going to go with a low-owned wide receiver, you really want to get sneaky, or maybe you're just looking for a cheap option to come back the other way. I do like Mac Hollins here. He got a couple of deep balls last week. The guy's gotten jacked and he still hasn't lost his speed. So here's the thing with Ritter. I think he has the sort of upside like we saw with Danny Dimes in week 2. Not the Danny Dimes that we just saw on Thursday night, but the Danny Dimes against the Arizona Cardinals, where he can take off, he can throw the ball. He's going to put up a Millie Maker winning score at some point this year. All right. Playing in the South, especially, which they're not very good. So he gets 8 games against, teams, or 6 games against teams that aren't very good. So I really do think that Ritter is going to be the nuts at some point this season. It just depends on how fast he figures it out. We saw that upside with the rushing last week. So I'm pretty high on Ritter here. I'm going to have pieces of him every week going forward. Just like I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to be on Kirk Cousins. They can't run the ball. They're going to throw it. Well, look what he did again last week, and what he's going to do again this week. So Ritter is a guy that I'm going to get some exposure to because nobody else has. It's very easy to build, even in a 20 max, right? Like if you put 3 or 4 lineups in there with Desmond Ritter stacks, you're way over the field, right? You can game stack this. I think that's fine. I think ideally for Ritter to be in the nuts, the game has to go off and it has to go over the 46 point total. So obviously my favorites are going to be like a Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Reynolds, who's dealing with a little bit of injury, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or even like a Sam Laporta coming back the other way is a decent little game stack. And to be honest, I don't mind a double game stack coming back. Like just Ritter +1 and then 2 coming back, just saying, hey, we're going to put our chips in that this Lions and Falcons game is going to go off, even though, maybe the book doesn't necessarily have it. So for me, really high on Ritter this week. I think he's going to bust out at some point. It might not be this week, right? I'm giving myself it out here but at some point this season, Desmond Ritter is going to have a 40-point game or 35-point game on DraftKings. Next up, we got Geno Smith, ownership 6.79%. Really cheap, weirdly cheap for a guy that threw for 328 yards and 2 touchdowns last week. The Panthers, not very good, right? He got a few rushes in last week. Seattle's at home. I think that Metcalf is going to play. He missed again today, but it's rib injury. He came back into the game. It's a likely just precautionary that they're holding him out of practice. If he's gone, then it's an automatic like Tyler Lockett, JSN. Either of those guys are fine. You don't need a run back here. You're just getting a cheap stack that can put up a decent amount of points. So Geno Smith guy, I think he's viable on both sides, but I do really like him on DraftKings. Next up, the RB12 statistically for the season. Like, can we talk about that James Cook is the RB12? He's the RB12 and he hasn't scored a touchdown yet. That's wild to me. Wild to me that a guy in this offense has been so good and hasn't scored a touchdown yet. It's coming. My one concern, right, is the weather. It's right now, it's going back and forth on when this cyclone is going to hit. If it's just going to be light rain or things like that, not bad weather. But regardless, I do think that the running game in this Buffalo Bills and Washington Commanders game is going to be the way to go. He's averaging 84.5 yards to game, 16.6 fantasy games. He's brought in 4 targets a game. Like that gives him a really nice floor on DraftKings. That's why I have Cook here on DraftKings, not on FanDuel. I think he's a better play on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. So really high on Cook this week. Again, I need to watch the weather, but he's not cheap. But he's got a similar upside to like some of the $8,000 price backs. and a better floor than the guys that are like the cheapies $1,000 below him. So James Cook is kind of the middle tiered running back that I think can get there as long as he doesn't get vultured by Lats Murray again here this week. Next up, my favorite Vikings receiver, KJ Osborne. So KJ Osborne is actually on the field for 95% of the passing plays, which is wild. Obviously this is I think the cheap and low-owned way to get access to this Vikings offense. You're not playing Hawk, you're not playing Addison or Jay Jettas. Just a one-off from KJ Osborne and hoping that 95% production rate, right? Really, like he's on the field for 95% of the passing plays, get him there. They have one of the worst linebacking cores in the league. Coincidentally, have former Viking in it. I think if the Vikes can get them to bite on some play action, like Osborne in the middle of the field is going to smash. He's that guy, 3rd and 4th down. They're looking his way, and he can get a ton of targets here at a fairly low price. So he can rack up those PPR points and have 5,600. He doesn't need to do much to hit value. Next up, the last DraftKings play is John Bates. I do this when I published this article out, I'm at 0.28% ownership. Logan Thomas has been ruled out, so I think that ownership is going to go up a little, but it's still looking like it's not going to be that high. Brought in last week, he worked more as the pass catching tight end, 3 of 5 targets, 46 yards. Cole Turner is the TE3. He is known as a better pass catcher. I think that Turner could end up being, sort of more involved this week, but I really do think that Bates plays the most. And he's going to be that safety little valve or that safety check down valve for Sam Howell in a game where the weather could be bad. Howell's been very efficient, but he's also been a little bit risk averse. He's not throwing bad balls, only has 1 pick through 2 games. So against the Bills where he knows that he can't turn the ball over, I think we could see Bates kind of get peppered with a bunch here. I don't love any of the tight ends. I really don't. I think that Kelsey, Hawkinson, any of those guys could smash, right? Any of those guys could smash this week, even a Mark Andrews. But I think we're going to see something similar to last week where like the highest scoring tight end is 13, 14, 15 points on DraftKings. So if that's the case again, then it's going to make sense to really, really pay down on a John Bates or even a Cole Turner if you want to go there. There's a couple other cheapies out there too, but that's the strategy I'm going about this week, is that I think if I can get a tight end that can get 13, 14 points at sub 4K, even sub 3.5K, I am going to do that in my DraftKings builds this week. Again, if you are not a DFS Army VIP and you just must hate making money, look at my boy Bobby Wow here, winning $1 million on a Danny Jones lineup a couple of years ago again. And then we had another Army guy in the top 10 on FanDuel too. So that's not a bad lineup. Remember David Johnson? He was a beast. And it's wild how quick these running backs are in and out of the NFL every single year. So we are switching gears now. We are going to FanDuel. All right. And FanDuel is obviously a little bit trickier, but it's really about touchdowns on FanDuel. So the first guy on my list is DeSean Watson. And guess what? DeSean Watson looked terrible last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't care. A 1-week sample does not, against a good defense, like I'm really not concerned. Gets to go up against the Titans, who are one of the worst defenses, especially in the secondary. Nick Chubb got hurt. Watson is going to be throwing the ball a ton. Amari Cooper is off of the injury report, so he's going to be a full go. You can play Watson with anybody. Cooper, Njoku, Elijah Moore. I don't really want any. I have 0.0 interest in Jerome Ford here. Or Kareem Hunt, really. Kareem Hunt, I did see some videos from practice today. Looked like he's getting back involved, but I just don't know that the usage is going to be high enough for Kareem Hunt. And I think it's going to fall on DeSean Watson quite a bit here. I love to see him using his legs, and he has some real GPP winning upside. I don't really want any of the Titans on a run back. This is just a Watson +1 for me, and it'll help you to again, afford some guys. 7,500 is not super cheap, but the ownership is. Another guy who kind of busted as chalk last week was Joshua Kelly, and Joshua Kelly gets the gift of going up against my Vikings and their awful front seven. So I really expect Kelly to have a nice week here. He's going to be low owned, but which in a better matchup, which is wild to me that he's in a better matchup. He's a better spot. The game total is 54. It's a 1-point spread. It's going to be close. They are going to have to run the ball. And I think it just sets up so much better for him this week than it did last week. And he's gonna hit value this week at just a crazy low number. Second highest favorite to score here at -140, that was earlier. Austin Eckler has been ruled out, so that makes Kelly even a better play. Here's the deal. Vikings can't stop anyone out there on the run. But regardless, the Vikings and Brian Flores through 2 games have shown that they are really still in that New England Patriots, Bill Belichick mode where they are going to try to eliminate a team's number 1 threat. And that number 1 threat is the passing game. So Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, those guys are who the Vikings are going to key on. I expect them to try to box them in on the outside and bring safeties in for help. And that is going to allow Josh Kelly to run against some very few stacked boxes. I think this is the ultimate bounce back spot. And like I said, in typical DFS Fish fashion, everyone is running away from the chalk that busted that's in a smash spot the next week. I feel like this happens all the time. And I am going to be really high on him. The Proptimizer, look at this thing. The Proptimizer is a way to maximize your winnings on Prize Picks, but also just a really cool way to have access to, I use it all the time just to give me an idea of what the slate looks like. So I want to show you guys this real quick. Sorry, I was not signed in because, again, you can see my article for free. I don't need to be signed in. But yeah, it gives you a good idea of what the slate does or what the slate looks like. And like I said, okay, so we were just talking about that Chargers and Minnesota game popping off. We can see here. We've got, all of the different props, but let's say we were just talking about Josh Kelly. If we look at rushing yards, we can see what the consensus lines are. So right now, the consensus line among the sportsbook is 61.5. The sportsbook's projection are actually at 61.17. And our Sharp app projection is 59.179. So if you were betting the prop, right, you'd look at that and go, ooh, okay, I'm going to look at the under, but we're not betting the prop here. We're just hoping that Josh Kelly can find the end zone at this price. And we look here, we can see we got touchdown scores. Where are we at here? Passing yards, receiving yards. Oh, we don't have the prop market in there for touchdown scores yet. But yeah, you can see he's a better play than pretty much all the other guys that they're giving numbers to. Cam Akers is not going to play. You can see the passing yards. Kirk Cousins 294, Herbert 283. Our Sharp app is projecting that at 296 and 290. So we'd want the overs there. But again, just another really cool tool, and I just didn't have that, or I did have that on the screen, right? Let's go. So I feel like this is the second time I have done this to you guys. Share my screen here. Let's just do window. There we go. That's better. So now you guys can see it. There, that's what I was talking about. You can see all the passing yards. You can search for rushing attempts even, right? So look at where we're saying that the consensus line at the sports books is 15.5 rushing attempts for Joshua Kelly. I don't believe our projections have jumped into the fact that Austin Eckler is out yet. So once they do, I would imagine that number is going to be closer to 15, but 15 touches is really good. We look at receptions. We can see we're still talking about Josh Kelly. We don't have a line on Kelly yet because Eckler just went out. But yeah, you can get a really good idea of basically the entire slate right here by doing this. Let's see what's our number 1 odds to hit prop, and it's actually this is just in this game. Can I go to all games? Is that the number 1? Is Gerald Everett over the number 1 prop to hit? Yeah, Gerald Everett total receptions. That's the under, right? And the Keenan Allen under. Interesting. We like the under on Justin Jefferson too. Ooh. All right, we're the Sharp app is calling for some of these chalk games to not blow up. So speaking of chalk games, Sky Moore, another opportunity for you to get access to a high-powered offense in a great spot. I think that his stats are a little bit inflated from last week because he took 155 yards not to the house, but on the last play of the game. But he's looking like a bigger part of this offense, right? He's wide receiver 2 in snap counts and targets, and weirdly, Justin Watson is number 1 among wide receivers, which makes 0 sense. So it's not going to be Kadarius Toney. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not very good. Sky Moore is the guy that they've invested draft capital in. You saw him catch that touchdown last week. I think we see more of the same here, and he smashes. So next up, DeAndre Hopkins, another guy that's dealing with a little bit of an injury, but I expect him to play. Ran 70% of the routes last week after not practicing all week. So he's been able to practice in a limited fashion. I think that means that he's going to be back in the mix here. I think we see him closer to that 13 targets he had in week 1 than the 5 he had last week. Cleveland gave up some big plays. Pickett and the Steelers last week. George Pickens had that long pass reception. I think that Hopkins could have a big day at almost no ownership. One of my favorite lower owned wide receivers. And our last 10 under 10 before we get to the defense is Adam Troutman. Mediocre performance last week, was fairly popular, but he gets another good spot. The Dolphins are a pass funnel tight end defense. He's a cheap TD with upside. I just talked about it with John Bates. I'm looking for these guys that are in good spots that could potentially pop off, even just for 12 or 13 points, because I think that gets it done this week, unless Travis Kelce somehow finds a way to score like 3 touchdowns, which, I mean, we've seen him do in the past, and the Bears are not good, but even then you need some cheaper wide receivers to pop off for you if you're going to afford that Kelce stack, right? So Troutman's another guy that I have some interest in here. I think that the ownership and price doesn't necessarily make sense. And finally, my streamer special defense, the Los Angeles Chargers, projecting super low owned just because of the high total. This is a bit of an off-the-wall play. I think that there is potential that we see a defense versus a quarterback in the same lineup in the Millie Maker win it for the first time. I think that is I'm putting that out there into the world that we could see that. The Vikings are, it pains me to say it, guys, but the Vikings are not very good. They're a very good offense, but they turn the ball over. Whether it's the offensive line issues, they got a new guy coming in again this week, Dalton Risner, who should be good. But they turn the ball over. Alexander Madison puts the ball on the ground. Kirk Cousins is not, he'll throw some bombs that get picked. He's not afraid to take some chances. Especially, I think they might be feeling some pressure here because of the 0-2 start. I still think that Cousins throws for 300 plus 3 TDs. Like, that's what I'm saying. I think that he can be the nuts, and the Chargers D can find a touchdown, a couple of sacks, a couple of picks, and find their way into the nuts as well. If the Pats don't do it against Zach Wilson, who is just terrible. Sorry, Geek and the rest of the Jets fans out there. So that is what I got this week. So that's my streamer defense. Again, if you want just the quick rundown, right? We're going with, in our 10 under 10 this week, we are going with Desmond Ritter, Geno Smith, James Cook, KJ Osborne, and John Bates on Draftkings. And on Fanduel, we've got DeSean Watson, Joshua Kelly, Sky Moore, DeAndre Hopkins, and Adam Troutman, with our streamer defense being the Los Angeles Chargers. And I hope that we have a better week this week on FanDuel. We crushed on DraftKings last week. Let's see if we can do it on both sites this week. Again, if you are not a DFS Army VIP, you can use that code UpNorth. It gets you 10% off VIP monthly membership. And you can, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. It hurts my heart a little bit, but please hit the like and subscribe button and tell me who you like as your favorite under 10% owned play this week. If you crush, I will highlight you next week on this pod. Again, for DFS Army, I am DFS Up North. Have a fantastic week. Cheers, everybody.